It's the PGA Tour's annual return to Pebble Beach golf links along the Monterey Peninsula. And Golf Channel's coverage begins on the range next. Golf Channel and the PGA Tour proudly present On the Range. And live Wednesday coverage from the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am. It is a story oozing with 8 decades of tournament history, featuring the stars of the PGA Tour and their amateur and celebrity partners from the entertainment, sports, and business worlds. And while the DNA of what was the old Crosby Clambake still lives on, this tournament has decidedly entered the modern era of professional golf as a signature event on the PGA Tour, headlined by an elite field of 80 players competing for elevated FedEx Cup points this week and a $20 million purse. Fifth event of the season. This man right here, Chris Gotterup, has gotten his hands on plenty of FedEx Cup points and a lot of cash. Susie Whaley, and oh, by the way, a couple of trophies already under his belt.
I mean, seriously, 2-time winner, and when you say a lot of cash, you meant that literally, that's for sure. But I think what's so refreshing about him is even just watching him win last week. I mean, when he made that putt, it was just pure joy and excitement. I know his girlfriend was there for the first time, getting to watch him win a championship, and I just love seeing it. I love watching it. You can see here Chris is always working on the structure of his backswing, and that's a Tour Striker ball. Our friend Martin Chuck Collin has put that ball into many a PGA Tour players, or between many a PGA Tour players' arms, and really helps him stay contained, connected, and certainly if he's been using that for the last, let's say, 10 months, I would say that probably doesn't leave his golf bag ever.
You know, he's a Haskins Award winner. He's a Jack Nicklaus Award winner. Got the Big Ten Player of the Year. He was always destined for some sort of start. I mean, did we think we'd have it this quickly? Probably not. You know, he's won 3 times in 10 starts on the PGA Tour. It's difficult enough to win once, let alone do it in that short a period of time. He's an exciting, explosive player that's not afraid of the moment.
Yeah, his coach, Jason Birnbaum, is obviously working hard and has stated multiple times, he just works on this stable, repeatable swing structure. And as I mentioned, that certainly helps him do that. But we'll talk about his golf swing as we get into the show. And it's a little bit unconventional for most, but as you take a peek at it, I think the thing that stands out to me most is one, thank heavens Jason didn't change. It's so athletic and requires an enormous amount of strength to produce the shots he does and keep them online. I tell you what, because it's that athletic, it reminds me a little of, not of the swing itself, but the mentality of Randy Smith and Scotty Scheffler. If it's good, leave it be.
Yeah, well, that's a great point that you make, you know, and so many of these instructors, so many of these players are trying to fit almost into a certain swing style or swing shape. And like you said, sometimes just let the player play, let the artist paint. Doesn't necessarily need to be paint by numbers.
I mean, you asked me earlier, Susie, do you know what his ball speed is off the top of your head? I think I said something ridiculously low for him, like 183 or 4, and you looked it up, and I think it was, 189?
He popped
with
a couple,
the driver?
Yeah, a couple last week, 189.
I mean, just crazy good and fun to watch him hit golf balls. You can see he's not at full 100% pace here. Really a nice thing to watch, too, if you're at home working on your game. Oftentimes when these tour players come out, they are not hitting at 100% pace. 70% working on whatever they're working on, trying to get their rhythm, trying to understand their mechanics and dynamics. And oftentimes we call it on the range, see people just grinding on the range before they go play their 18 holes. They're exhausted, they're sweating, right? They get to their first tee and you think, oh my goodness, are you all right? And you just wish that you would say, okay, you know what, let's just take it down a notch. You're already going to be a little uptight on that first tee. All of us are. We can all relate to that, but don't come in there hot. Come in there a little settled, a little quiet.
Words of wisdom there.
Yeah, Gotterup up to number 1 in the FedEx Cup standings, up to 5th in the world. Just a meteoric rise. 42 of the top 50 are here. Susie Whaley, Colin Swatner here as well. They're going to blow your socks off with their swing analysis over the next 90 minutes, I promise. This place is special, Colin. You know it from your 10-plus times on the bag for Jason Day. If you're lucky enough to have been there, you understand it. It's an iconic place, and it never gets old. And the players, this is one they circle on the calendar every year.
Oh, absolutely, Swanee. You mentioned it in the opener. It's the 80th playing of this event. It started back in 1947. You know, it's iconic. And when I had the chance to play here with my wife, Lisa, you know, you go to those little moments at the 17th to the left side of the green there where Tom Watson back in 1982 at the US Open chipped in. You want to hit that shot, Susie. It's an iconic golf course. It's been graced with some of the greatest AM partners. It's one of only 4 events that are actually in a rotation where they play multiple venues. They start the season. There's 3 in fact, of 4 weeks where they play multiple venues. And a lot of these guys sort of, some come in and embrace the moment. Rory, in a presser earlier in the week, sort of said, maybe I didn't embrace it as much as I could have in the early days. Embraced it, certainly he did last year, and obviously resulted in a W. But it's a great golf course. I love coming back here every time, and I love covering it.
Yeah, they'll play Spyglass Hill as well, Sue. So 2 courses in the rotation. Weather usually is a factor. You've got celebrities and amateurs. You throw it all into the blender. What's the recipe for winning here this week?
Yeah, I mean, welcome to Northern California, right? The weather is going to come in. We all know that's the case. We have some footage of that as well. Cold today, little rainy. And I think when you think about that as we go through the rest of the week, you know, the rough isn't going to be as long as it typically would be in summertime here because of that weather. So maybe 2, maybe 3 inches, I think, is what they let us know it would be. Fairways are going to be damp. That certainly means for the long hitters, they're wider. You're going to have the opportunity for that 125 to 175-yard shot coming in, which I think is imperative here to really have that lower flighted trajectory based on the wind to come in. You're going to have Poana greens here, and Poana greens at Pebble Beach. Certainly we have players who love them, and then we have players who might get a little impatient on them come the afternoon. I'm probably speaking for myself personally, but you know, you're going to see a little bit of roughness on those greens in the afternoons, and it's going to be who stays patient the longest and who gets those rounds in the early AM. You have to take advantage of the par 5s here. So Pebble, while also the shortest or second shortest golf course on the PGA Tour, I think Travelers is first and then comes Pebble. You know, you can't underestimate it ever because its teeth comes out regardless of the distance.
Glitzy field here this week. A lot of notable groupings to be looking for, including Tommy Fleetwood, the man who had the FedEx Cup in his hands in Atlanta late last year. He's making his PGA Tour season debut, playing with Bob McIntyre. They'll start at Spyglass. Xander Schauffele plays with Jordan Spieth, one of 7 past champions in the field. Of course, Rory is the defending champion, the winningest player in the field with those 29 PGA Tour victories, alongside the Kiwi Ryan Fox, who won a couple times on the PGA Tour last season. Hovland and Batia will start at Pebble, as will Gotterup and Wyndham Clark, who shot 60 here on the way to the title a couple of years ago. And Scotty Scheffler will play with Hideki Matsuyama. Scotty, the American Express champion, and Hideki nearly the champion at the WM Phoenix Open. A stinging loss to Gotterup in a playoff last week at TPC Scottsdale. Maverick McNeely here had himself a good showing at TPC Scottsdale last week as well. And typically, Susie plays very well on the West Coast early in the season.
Yeah, you know, I mean, he's had a good start to his year, that's for sure. He was 10th at the Farmers Insurance Open, T13, as you mentioned, opening with a 65. Great round there. T24 at the Sony Open in Hawaii this year. And he works with Scott Hamilton, that you'll see there, and certainly has always worked with Butch Harman as well, but Scott Hamilton typically on the road with Maverick, his brother, on the bag. And, I mean, we've talked about this a lot, but, you know, he was right there for the Ryder Cup pick last year as well, had a great 2025. You know, and I look to Maverick to have a really strong week this week. His golf swing looks great. Colin, I don't know if you want to chat about any of what you see here with Scott, but, you know, I love some of the moves in his golf swing. He shifted to a little steeper, more consistent swing away from the ball, just so that he's not getting too far underneath it, especially on the downswing. That's what he's always really fought away from.
Our tracing technology there is provided by TrackMan.
Yeah, I think so many of these guys are always afraid of getting behind it, getting stuck, the club getting underneath the plane. And they've gone to that more of a fade bias, you know, swing direction a little bit more towards the left-hand side. They feel that they That takes out one side of the golf course there. You can see the other man just to the side there. That's his brother. It's been a good partnership, really.
Yeah, I think it's been a great partnership for Maverick. And
Copy.
even when I watch him play, too, he's just very level-headed on course. Obviously, the one win underneath his belt, as mentioned. And I was surprised he didn't get some of the job done last year. I think if there was any critique that you would have, he's been in contention and just hasn't
That's true.
maybe been there long enough to get the job
I
done.
bet his dad owns a piece of the course.
Yeah, that second at the Genesis Invitational that you mentioned, and those 3 third-place finishes at the RBC, BMW, and, of course, at Valero, Texas, earlier in the year.
You know, he's a Stanford graduate, and you can imagine he's played this golf course, in my opinion, multiple times. I think he probably knows every nook and cranny out here, and probably Spyglass as well. So that certainly is also to his benefit. You can see here he's just using this to make sure he's checking his shoulder plane on the backswing. Make sure he's getting the chest rotated, club across the body. I love that drill. I love that drill for those that I teach. It keeps you centered over the middle of the golf ball more, and really something I think any player could benefit from.
Yeah, Scott Hamilton there is one of the best in the business, works with a lot of guys out on the PGA Tour. I caught up with him late last year, and I said, how many guys are on the roster? And he said, I think I've got about 10 plus. And I said, I don't know how you manage them. He said, I don't know how I manage them either. But, you know, he said most of these guys that he's worked with for a long period of time, they have their certain patterns, they have their tendencies, and it's a matter of understanding, you know, what those tendencies are, and then knowing the little bit of sprinkle golden dust that you can put on and get a player ready pretty quickly. These guys are all Ferraris. It doesn't take long for these guys to warm up and get going. And, you know, it's just a matter of just, you know, sort of integrating what they're working on, making them feel comfortable and getting them ready to play.
Yeah, right there. My arms get too wide. If I get out in front of it, I can't get there in the place I want to get to. And Scott, you know, he travels a ton with the PGA Tour. As you mentioned, he has a ton of LPGA players and Epson Tour players, by the way, that he coaches as well. So I don't think he's ever home.
Winner of the RSM Classic, Maverick McNeely, a couple of years ago. The winner of 20 PGA Tour events in his illustrious career. Only Tiger has gotten there faster. Coming up, Scotty Scheffler featured in our On the Range coverage here on Golf Channel. Last weekend at the WM Phoenix Open, Scotty Scheffler was hanging around the cut line on Friday, just snuck into the weekend, and then we know how dangerous he could be over the final 36. He went to work, got himself into the picture, and just gave the guys at the top, Colin, a little something to think about on Sunday.
Well, just think about this. He was in a tie for 89th behind the eventual winner, Chris Gotterup, after round one and into conversation late on Sunday. This guy has a determination and grit and a mental game that's unsurpassed by many.
Look at this little nugget that our graphics team dug up. First 147 starts as a professional. Tiger with 39 victories, Jack with 27, Scotty with 20. If you're in that kind of heady company, you know you have done some truly special things.
Now, the one thing that really stuck out there was our producer David Gross mentioned one miscut for Tiger Woods. Can you believe it? One miscut.
You know that has to irritate him.
You know it.
It has to.
It's like that mark on the wall that you always
Right,
see when
right.
you walk past.
Since these signature events have been around for the last couple of years, Scotty has finished inside the top 10 in nearly 93% of them. Now, they're limited fields and there's no cuts, but inside the top 10 in 93% of these signature events, very emblematic, Colin, of the kind of season he had last year on the PGA Tour.
Oh, that's right. I just keep on trying to remember the fact that his first full season on the PGA Tour was in 2024. He's had 20 wins. Susie, 20 wins.
And I think, I don't know that we talk about it enough. I mean, you have to talk about the relationships between player and caddy, too, when you look at data like that and you look at how incredible he has been. Consistency, of course, Randy Smith has been talked about so often as this unbelievable golf professional that he is. Teacher of the Year at the PGA of America, accolade after accolade, player after player for Randy Smith. And we know that Scotty has a mindset that just allows him to continue to battle back. But when you think about Ted Scott, and you think about navigating a player around a golf course, and you think about the tremendous talent that Ted Scott brings to this partnership, I don't think you can say it enough. I think together they have created that graphic.
Colin, you understand the player-caddy dynamic and relationship better than many. This is something truly special that these two have going. And remember, Scotty had to kind of lure Teddy out of semi-retirement just a few short years ago.
That's right. He came out on the tour originally with Scotty McGuinness, a fellow Australian. And, you know, it was after the Ryder Cup that really the conversation started to take place there with, you know, Ted Scott and Scotty Scheffler. And to your point, Susie, I think they make a great team. And when we say a team, it's not only what goes on the golf course, but it's also, too, what goes on off the golf course. And they're both great friends off the golf course. They have many common things that they enjoy and like being a part of. And I think that brings not only the experience that Ted Scott brings in caddying out on the PGA Tour for in excess of 20 years, but that bond, that unification, that they're in the fight together.
Yeah, and you know Ted's there every time Randy's working with Scotty, so certainly a second set of eyes for him as they work on his game and his tendencies and his swing. And then strategically, how they manage their incoming shots to greens is what I'm always so incredibly impressed by. You know, he just seems to kind of lollygag his way around, right? You watch everybody else, but sure enough, it's 15 feet, he's 20 feet. He makes 4 of them, and he walks away with 68. And, you know, the rest of us are like, how'd that happen? How did you just do that? And again, on a course like here, Scotty has not won at Pebble Beach. I realize it's Spyglass as well, but it'll be interesting to see. He's had a top 10 here for sure. But hasn't been in the, 1, 2, 3 position here, which is, I think, surprising, except for ball flight, perhaps, and for conditions. What do you think, Colin?
Yeah, and I think, you can see the man just on the left of the screen in a white hat there. He's the TaylorMade representative, Adrian, just going through some driver head adjustments here as we take a look at that, what we could call a little bit of an unconventional move. We've talked about the foot slide. We've talked about the lateral motion through the golf ball. But he matches it up better than anybody. It's that club there. I think if he gets that club sorted out, we've seen the left miss a little bit more often than probably he likes to see it. And I think if they can get that dialed in, I think it'll be game on again this week, and this guy will be in the conversation late on Sunday.
Yeah, interesting that he's trying drivers today, teeing it up tomorrow, right on Pebble. But I know he's been going through this for the last couple weeks, looking for a really the perfect driver head. And you look at Scotty's graphic and you go, oh, I think you're probably doing just fine with anything you put in your hand, right?
Other member of our team is former PGA Tour champion Robert Dameron, who's working the range for us and standing by with Mav McNeely.
Right. Here with Maverick McNeely. Maverick, your game is trending. You're coming to a place you've been runner-up here before. You played here a lot. You got to like your chances this week.
I love the West Coast, so it's easy to transition to the grass. You just got some weather, some conditions we're going to see this week, but it's nice not having to try and relearn a new golf course.
Well, that's where I was going to go with the next question. Last week, the ball's going forever on the ground and in the air. This week is going to be total opposite. Any kind of things you got to work on the range to keep up with that?
I mean, we're going to be wearing a lot more clothing, that's for sure, bundled up, and definitely just making sure I keep a nice big shoulder turn. Just it's easy to get short when it gets cold and you're trying to flight it down. So just keep moving, keep the body moving, and just working on a lot more, like taking 20, 30 yards off the club.
Okay, Pebble or Spyglass?
I'll take Spyglass on the bad weather day and Pebble on the good weather day.
All right, good. Both answers. I like it. Thanks very much. Good luck this week.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Good question from Dameron. Great answer from Maverick McNeely, former Stanford star who knows it well. One of the past champions in the field and already a winner this season down in San Diego at the Farmers Insurance Open. Justin Rose coming up in our coverage next. Gorgeous overhead look at the devilish little par 3 7th at Pebble Beach Golf Links. Depending on the direction and velocity of the wind, you might hit a chippy little gap wedge down there, Carl, or you might take a little mini driver, as Akshay Bhatia did yesterday. Did you see that?
Oh, I did see that.
But did you see this? Chris Gotterup winning twice in the opening 4 events of the season, including out in Honolulu to crack the seal on a brand new campaign on the PGA Tour. Just a stress-free tap in at the last at Waialae Country Club. I'll tell you what, already a 4-time winner, up to 5th in the world golf rankings, and very different layouts that he has conquered, Susie. It's a game that really travels, including in the Arizona desert here last week.
Yeah, absolutely. And this really wasn't that easy to lie. Certainly could pull that off to the left and did not, obviously, as we all saw. But not only that, it was just spectacular.
in a playoff against Hideki Matsuyama, who bogeyed the 72nd hole to drop into sudden death. And it was sudden victory for that man with a birdie at 18, the first trip down the par 4 in a playoff. And Gotterup, already a two-time champion. Let's hear about the marvelous start to his season with Robert.
All right, here with last week's winner, Chris Gotterup. Chris, congratulations. A couple, not flat, but not as good middle rounds on Friday, Saturday. What point Sunday did you say, man, I can win this?
Maybe not till after I hit the second shot at a couple feet on 18. I mean, I knew obviously it was going into the day in a decent spot, trying to get a good finish and get some points, and ended up getting hot at the end, and just trying to give myself a chance. And obviously to have that chance, obviously Hideki makes bogey on 18, but you're expecting him to make par, and to have the chance and then capitalize on it is awesome.
You've won at 4 very different golf courses, different grasses.
Yeah.
This week is going to be way different with the wind and the heavy air and the cold. What is it about you that likes to make those adjustments?
I don't know. I mean, I think I try my best to play with what the course is giving me, and I try to adjust the best I can, and I feel like me and Brady do a good job of that. And some weeks you get it right, some weeks you don't. I hadn't gotten it right there in the past. I've missed the first 2 cuts I played there, and I think you just learn over the years what works and what doesn't work. And obviously I haven't played here at this tournament yet, so we'll see. We're going to give it our best, and we'll see what happens.
Which do you like better, Pebble or Spy?
I mean, you have to say Pebble. It's iconic, and it'd be hard to say if I had one more round left that it wouldn't be at Pebble. If I was by myself. So, it's an amazing place, and obviously Spy is no slouch either. But Pebble's just iconic.
Thanks very much. Good luck.
You got it. Appreciate it.
Scott points leader, trying to become the first player in 51 years to win 3 of the first 5 events of the PGA Tour season since the great Johnny Miller in 1975. Of course, Johnny so closely tied to Pebble Beach as well as a 3-time champion here. Justin Rose, the age of 45, pound like a fine wine, just gets better with age. A winner for the 13th time on the South Course at Torrey Pines a couple of weeks ago.
We call it the On the Range show. We're going to talk about that in just a minute, but it's what's happening off the range here for Justin Rose that I want to talk about. It's his bus. We've documented, we've talked about it before. He has a whole health and wellness studio in there. He has infrared, he has cold plunge, sauna, massage tables, everything in order to get his body to where he needs it to be. He works with a guy called Adam Dunn. He also has a fitness trainer as well. Full team, that guy there, Mark Blackburn. He's the brains behind the operation, if you want to call it. He's current swing coach. But he is a study of the game. He needs no stone unturned, the ultimate professional, Susie.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, turned professional as a teenager. His first professional win was in 2006. 2026, we just watched him win. That's 20 years apart. Very few professional athletes can be at the top elite of their game with a 20-year span. And what you said, Colin, certainly is the reason why, but also his dedication and hard work. You mentioned this earlier when we were watching him. Clubs on the ground, consummate professional when he's working on his game. You can see the yellow shaft that's behind him. That's just so he's checking his backswing plane real quickly of where that club face is versus the shaft on the backswing. I did have a chance to speak a little bit with Mark, and he was kind enough, as I interrupted their lesson, by text to write me back, because we were thinking he was working on angle of attack, which we were correct about, but he's also working on his swing direction, Mark mentioned, trying to get that positive. So you think of what is swing direction? Swing direction is a 3-dimensional model. Think of that as a hula hoop in front of you as your setup. They're just trying to turn that hula hoop slightly to the right to give it a little bit of a draw bias. So it really, really fascinating stuff, and they worked quite diligently on this as we watched them earlier today.
Yeah, it's a good explanation, a great way you put that there. I always, in my teaching, especially when we're using, your choice of radar, for me it's a TrackMan that I use, and I always refer to the swing direction as what the player feels. People think that they feel club path. Club path is a result of angle and attack and swing direction. So understanding what direction you're swinging in and what direction you want that club moving in and the angle of attack then results in that club path.
Yeah.
It's positive or negative.
Agreed. I think if you just think of it as the overall path of the swing, rather just impact.
Yeah.
Right? If you think of it that way in three-dimensional, it's a little bit easier to understand swing direction, especially if you're using a launch monitor at your facility at home and you see what swing direction up there. Hopefully we described it a little bit easier for you to understand.
Well, the Rose action is as technically efficient as you'll see, Colin. Chris Gotterup's a little more of a homemade move, but he owns it, doesn't he?
Well, he certainly does, and Susie's done a great job here. She's going to put some lines on and actually talk through these two swings that, as you said, are almost completely different.
I mean, very, very different golf swings. And as you can watch, as this club gets taken away, I've just drawn a line, obviously, through the club head, right up through their hip sockets. You can see Justin Rose. This is what we call perfect plane. Club head outside the hands, the shaft rotates directly up that shaft line. However, you can see in Chris's photo, we call this much more steep. You can see how the shaft of his club is not following that particular line. It's going to go up much steeper. You see that his left wrist gets a slight cup in it, as Justin Rose's left wrist is quite flat. At the top of their backswings, you can see Chris well past parallel across the line, as we'll talk about the Jack Nicklaus's, the Phil Mickelsons. Certainly still a fabulous golf swing. Oftentimes creates a lot of power. Brooke Henderson on the LPGA Tour, for example. But as we look at this golf swing, if you look at the lower body as well, Chris is definitely lower, a little more squatty. And you can see that left knee has come in even farther. This is where we're really going to see some differences as well. As you look face on, and you look at the left side of their body, if I were just to draw a line down that hip position and down Justin's hip position, you can see how much farther in that left knee has shifted for Chris. And as he's using that rotation, you can see that incredible rotation of the upper body for both players. Chris's left shoulder certainly down more, steeper shoulder plane than Justin's. And then as they go through the golf ball, you can see this is just an enormous move through as they continue down into the golf ball. Huge rotary, steep for Chris, but then we get right here, and if I can put this line up here, you can see that shaft for Justin Rose is going literally straight through that right forearm. You can see the shaft for Chris is actually splitting both their forearms. So when they get to impact, it takes a ton of strength for Chris to make sure that club face stays square. And if you were looking at this picture, Colin, in general, and you were at home, you'd be like, wow, your golf swings look pretty similar, when in fact, not at all. And the strength that it takes for Chris to keep those hands from flipping over through impact is truly unbelievable, but so athletic in both of them, but just very different concepts.
Well, they call it the moment of truth for a reason. And that's 6 inches, that amount where the club is actually stuck to the ball. Impact is everything. And the thing there to highlight, to our listeners, our viewers out there that are watching the telecast is it doesn't have to be a certain way.
Yeah.
The amount of people that come to the lesson tee and they say, hey, I want it to look like this, or I want it to look like this. It's like, let's just find the best swing for you. And that's what Chris has done. He said, this is the gifts that I've been given. And how do I work with that? How do I play with that? What do I have to do to learn a new golf course? You heard him talking about that just a moment ago. So, different swings, they all create, similar actions and reactions with the golf ball, but totally different in the way that they both get there.
Yeah, and that's why you can see why, Chris works so hard with his coach on structure of the swing. If you watch Justin Rose's swing, you go, can I please just put that on repeat on my screensaver? Because if all of us could just be that simple and do it in that way. But he works incredibly hard at it as well.
Victory number 13 for Justin Rose, coming in his 447th start. The Farmers Insurance Open a couple of weeks back. The Irishman, always good fun. Part of the field here this week. Shane Lowry made a hole-in-one at the 7th last year, as a matter of fact. Luck of the Irish, perhaps a lot of skill involved as well with this man. Featured in our coverage when we come back. Welcome back to On the Range, providing you with in-depth swing analysis from Susie and Colin here this week, and also live first-round coverage coming your way tomorrow here. Can be found on ESPN Plus starting at 11:45 Eastern. And then Golf Channel's first-round coverage here starts at 3 p.m. Eastern on Thursday. '22 champion here at Pebble Beach, Tom Hoge. It's a very simplistic and efficient move here, isn't it?
It certainly is, and he's an underestimated player, Tom Hoge. In fact, he qualified for the FedEx Cup for the 7th time, 6th time in concession. That's not easy to do. Find your way to Atlanta every year, despite only winning once on the PGA Tour.
Yeah, an incredible iron player. Not necessarily considered a long ball hitter, and certainly that matters this week. As we mentioned earlier, is second shortest yardage on the PGA Tour, at least at Pebble. See him lower that telltale move if Tom Hoge's a few holes over and you're not sure if it's Tom. He's got that little lowering on his backswing. See if we can see that again.
Tell you what, Susie, these guys really dodged the bullet too with the weather. You know, we've had a lot of rain. You know, yesterday, heavy winds. We've seen some Instagram posts from a variety of different players that, you know, we'll take a look at a little later on. But, you know, a lot of these guys would have thought, you know, yesterday, oh, I don't think I'm going to get a range session in on Wednesday. So to have it as calm as it is, you know, the winds yesterday were in excess of 25, 30 miles an hour, where they can get in, get a good session done, get it in early, take the afternoon off. It gets very cool here in the afternoons. I think that's really going to help a lot of these first-time players out here, and also, too, the players that have had, you know, sort of a tough start to the season. Not that Tom's had that at all.
Yeah, I think many of them probably expected they weren't even going to get around him today,
Yeah.
the way the weather forecast was looking, and it's been really quite nice, which is, no, maybe that's an overstatement. They're still wearing long sleeves and coats and rain gear.
There's our man, Robert Dammer, down there with the 36-year-old Tom Hoge from Fargo, North Dakota. Played his collegiate golf in Fort Worth, Texas at TCU. So it does start blowing around this place this week, and it likely will. Keep your eye on this guy with that low penetrating ball flight. Very good player in windy conditions.
The next 3 days are supposed to be fairly good. Some sunshine, lighter breezes, things like that. And then Sunday, you know, if the forecast stays the way it's supposed to be, it's going to be a little bit messy on Sunday.
Jay Lowry was the runner-up to his good mate, Rory McIlroy, here last year. From 65-68 weekend for Lowry. Not quite good enough to catch Rory, whose 21 under par winning score was the second best in tournament history. The first time we've seen Shane on the PGA Tour in 2026.
Who bought the drinks afterwards? Rory or Shane? They both made a hole-in-one this week.
Yes.
So one at Pebble, one at Spieth. So it would have been interesting to see who was reaching for the wallet in the 19th hole there.
I think I'd rather hang out with Shane.
He might be drinking the stuff I like, the darker stuff.
Yeah, it's been a hefty bar tab. That we can be sure of.
Yeah. You got to like his chances too, you know, tough conditions, likes to move the ball a little bit lower, left to right.
Yeah.
Look at this one here, Susie.
Yeah, you know, Shane has one of those old school swings. Definitely uses his knees more than you see a lot of the modern golf swing players. And that's really to help him get that bigger rotation, that bigger turn. But you see that cupped left wrist at the top of his golf swing, and then he comes back and he rotates that left forearm, gets that left wrist nice and flat through impact, and releases it just beautifully.
That's Aaron Rai, the 30-year-old Englishman who's won once on the PGA Tour, came at the Wyndham Championship, last event of the regular season, 2024. Well-traveled player who played most of his golf, Susie, in Europe in the early stages of his career, winning 3 times on the DP World Tour. And he is a fastidious worker, very diligent in Everything he does, very meticulous, much in the manner that Colin described Justin Rose a little bit earlier.
Yeah, I call it deliberate in the way he goes about things. You know, he works with Andy and Piers. Me and My Golf, you can see the logo on the hat and proudly on the right chest there. You know, two great guys. If you want to go and check out some of their content, you can. Do a really good job of supplying the general public with some really, really good golf instruction, but they've done an amazing job with this guy. But I got the chance to watch him practice just down here at TPC Sawgrass, and the way he went about his practice, Susie, he had a yardage book out. He was going through particular kinds of lies. If he's going to miss the green right, what kind of shot would I be left with? Things like that. All his balls, his ball count is measured. Everything is done to perfection, and it just goes to show that this guy, he's got an opportunity to play at the highest level on the best tour in the world, and he is leaving no stone unturned. I really like him a lot. He's a great player, and I think he's going to be hoisting a lot more trophies and hardware in the future as well.
Yeah, I had the chance to walk on the ground with him when he won the Wyndham Championship, and to your point, everything had a KPI, right? I mean, you think about that obviously in business all the time. This is their business, and he takes it very seriously, but at the same time, incredibly cordial and pleasant to be around, and it's just fun to watch him practice and play. Setup's always the same. Ball position's always the same for whatever club that he's using. It's just this repeatability and consistency that leaves for better strikes. You know, I try to get that across to the juniors that I coach, Colin. I don't know about you, but just doing things the same, setting into your putter the same way every time, setting into the driver the same. And while that sounds very simple and common sense, I think as a player, it's very difficult to do. And that's why they use yardage sticks. That's why they alignment sticks. That's why they go through this process. But when I go to a driving range at a tour event, typically I'll see every single player has something going on. It's some sort of training aid, something on the ground. They remove them oftentimes and hit some balls without them as well. I go to a junior event, and it's just not the case, right? 10, 15%. It's getting better, which I'm happy to say and see. And then if I go to a club, very rarely, but a few really players that are working on their game that are obviously taking lessons there and have learned that are doing it. But I can't emphasize it enough. Just being deliberate in your setup creates better golf swings.
Aaron Rai played the Sony Open to start the season, took the last few weeks off, so refreshed and ready to go tomorrow as we send it down to Robert with the guy who won here just a few years ago.
Here on the range with 2022 champion Tom Hoge. Do you get here still, even though it's been 3 or 4 years later, and get the really, really good vibes?
Yeah, I think anytime you're coming to Pebble, even before I won, you know, it's just such a special place. Always exciting to be back here. A little more challenging on days like today, but hopefully that sun comes out here for us the rest of the week.
Thankfully, it's a practice day. Speaking of how tough it is, as far as the weather goes and the heavy air, how important, and I noticed you actually didn't have your TrackMan out, how important is it to work with that to see like how far a normal 150 or 200 yard shot goes when the air's like this?
Yeah, I think for me, I grew up, you know, in North Dakota playing in some interesting conditions. I've never really been a big TrackMan guy, so I enjoy days like today, you know, just coming out and kind of flighting some shots, hitting them both ways. And for me, you know, I feel like I've been a little bit off maybe with my iron game the last few weeks this season. It's kind of nice to get away from just hitting those, you know, trying to be perfect in the range, trying to hit positions and just go hit a few shots here in these conditions.
All right, Spyglass or Pebble?
I enjoy Spyglass a lot. That's hard to beat for me.
All right, thanks very much. Go get them.
Thank you.
Back to you guys.
First vote for Spyglass, cast by Tom Hoge, a fixture here at Pebble Beach through the years. How about Jordan Spieth making his 14th appearance here along the Monterey Peninsula? 2017 champion here in our coverage next. Wow, has it really been 26 years since Tiger Woods ran down Matt Gogol to win here back in 2000? Well, he did that at 14 along the way, holing out for an eagle, and that was at the 15th. And of course, Woods would win twice on these hallowed grounds, including the romp at the U.S. Open in later that summer. This was into that Sunday hole location at 16. That had a little peak as well. And then the birdie to close it out for one of his 9 PGA Tour victories. Comfortably, not quite as comfortable as the 15 shots he won by at the United States Open. He was 41 clear of Robert Dameron in that U.S. Open, by the way. That came straight from Robert. I would not have said it otherwise. One of the many indelible moments, images through the years here. Look at the champions here, Colin. Pure class, including Snead, Hogan, Nelson, the first 3 years of the event. How's that for a start?
Yeah, the win here is, you know, you've heard players already say a number of times it's iconic. Everyone wants to be on that winning leaderboard. It's just, you've got to strike your ball around this golf course. So there's just no two ways about it. You know, guys have talked about whether they like Spy. Spy's an interesting setup there, that golf course. You know, half of the holes are in amongst the trees. You heard Maverick McNeely say, oh, I'd rather that on a windy day. But certainly Spy has its fair share of holes out on the peninsula. But, you know, a little bit more open at Pebble Beach. Not as many holes in the woods. And it's going to be interesting to see how it blows tomorrow, what side of the draw you get on, and you'll hear a little bit of grumbling and moaning and groaning as you always do at this event.
Always do. I always do every event, right? Depending on the way and what time you play, and I get that. And sometimes it really does matter based on the wind, as you mentioned. See Jordan here, just hitting some balls, trying to get things going. You know, no secret that we just haven't seen him in that winner's circle in a long time. Colin, and he's searching.
He certainly is. You know, it's been he's only played 2 events this year. It was the Sony Open in Hawaii, finished T24 there, and last week the Waste Management, he missed the cut there. But you know, 4 top 10s and 8 top 25s in 2025. You take a little bit deeper dive, you peel the layer of the onion back. Strokes gained total, he was 13th. So you start to think, okay, well, you know, he should have had a better year than he had, and he still had a decent year. But when you start to look at his driving accuracy and his driving distance number, he's getting a little shorter, he's getting a little older now, the family's expanded, but he's getting a little shorter, he's getting a little crooked. And when you get those two combined, it makes it difficult. You start to force the issue, you start to try and attack the pin locations, you miss a few more greens, you don't get up and down as many times as you should, and suddenly you're behind the 8 ball. And I think this guy here, with this man right behind him, Cameron McCormick, will of course know all of that. And it'll just be reminding him of what he did when he was great, and then trying to get back there and trying to emulate that.
Yeah, and to your point, you on the PGA Tour today, you can be a little crooked if you're really long, right? Because you can get away with it, and I know that's a huge generalization, but he's fighting both, to your point, and it's just putting him in positions where he just can't. The bogey avoidance just can't happen. He's making too many big numbers and too many bogeys. But I know Cameron, he's been with Cameron a long time, trusted partnership here. As you said, there have been moments, right, where he's played some brilliant golf, and he just needs to get back to believing that can happen over and over. But also, to your point, not trying to chase power so much that he loses consistency, but at the same time, still needs to make sure he's getting a little bit more off that tee box.
77 starts since Spieth was last a winner on the PGA Tour, nearly 4 years since the 2022 RBC Heritage. Collin Morikawa just getting loose on the range here on a cool day.
Colin a little bit in the same boat, searching for that winner's circle. His last win on the PGA Tour was 2023, Zozo Championship. And Colin is well known for how good a long iron striker he is. So when you get a golf course and you're having distances that you're using those longer irons, I always say, why aren't you picking Colin to be right up there at the top. Probably not the case this week. He's going to have a lot more of that 125, 175 yard in. But gosh, you can't count Colin out. He just has such a beautiful motion. You just got to get his putter going.
Yes, it's always the sort of the bugaboo there is the flat stick sometimes there with Colin. You mentioned that, you know, his history here. He's played here a couple of times. Last year he finished in tied for 17th, tied 14th the year prior to that. He does have a game well suited to here. He drives the ball nicely, keeps the ball in front of him. We've talked about the rough already. It's not necessarily that penal around here. And just tiny greens as well. So it's one of those golf courses that the shot shaping becomes a little less of a point. You can hit to the middle of the greens, and the most you'll have 15, 20 feet if you putt to the corners. So it's about wearing the greens out, and this guy does it a lot. He hits a lot of greens, and if the flat stick can just pop up a little bit more, I think that's a good thing for him. It's also, too, don't forget, you've mentioned it, the POA. And the POA sort of is an equalizer. You know, the great putters and the good putters get sort of brought back a little bit, and the guys that maybe don't necessarily have that are sort of brought up to it. So it's a bit of a moderation. So I wouldn't be surprised to see his name in the mix.
Decent finishes the last couple of years, 14th and 17th for Colin. He kind of shuffled through some caddies the last season or so, didn't he? He settled on Mark Urbanek these days, guy who was on the bag for Tony Finau for a spell.
Yeah, he's a great guy. Mark's one of the good guys out there on the PGA Tour as a caddy. He's been out there, as you said, for an eternity. He's a calm-natured guy, very calculated in the delivery and what he wants. I spoke to Rick actually at the end of last year, and he said exactly the same things. He said, it's been a carousel of caddies, but like you said, I think it's a good mix, and hopefully it's one that is a little bit longer than the previous.
Robert Dameron doing a nice job of running down some past champions here, including the man who had the trophy in his hand 6 years ago.
Here with the 2020 champ, Nick Taylor. We're coming off a golf course last week, hard and fast, warm, where you've won. Coming to a place not so hard and fast, where you've won. Do you still get the good vibes here?
Yeah, I have great vibes here. I think I grew up in this type of weather a lot in the fall golf, lots of rain, lots of kind of half soft shots, trying to control the spin. So, you know, I wouldn't say I welcome the rain, but I definitely played enough in it so I know what to expect.
Is it easy for you to make this adjustment where the ball was going so far last week and you come here and when you get out and you get a certain yardage, you got to take a lot more club? Are you comfortable with that? Make that adjustment quickly?
Yeah, like I said, I think it's kind of what I grew up in. It's a lot of feel. You know, yesterday we played in a lot of wind, but it's a lot of, you know, chip 8 irons from 140 yards. You know, that technology can help, but again, it's when you're out there, you're kind of feeling the shot, feeling how the ball is reacting on the greens. So again, I can draw on a lot of experiences growing up and playing here for a bunch of years. So I guess I have that small advantage.
Which course do you like better, Pebble or Spieth?
Pebble is my all-time favorite. You know, Spieth is probably my top 10 all time. So I both love them. You know, Pebble is just a very second shot golf course. You got to put it in the right spots. You know, if we do dodge some more rain, if it does get a little bouncy, it makes it even more imperative to be in the right spot. So I love it.
All right. Good luck. Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
7 times a PGA Tour champion, former FedEx Cup winner as well. Coming off a nice showing at CPC Scottsdale, a top 10 last week for Viktor Hovland, featured in our On the Range coverage next. And we welcome you back to On the Range, live from Pebble Beach Golf Links for the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am. 42 of the top 50 players in the world are here, former FedEx Cup champions as well, like Viktor Hovland making his 5th tournament start here this week. Best finish tied for 13th back in 2023, Colin. He possesses a very curious mind, always looking for improvements, both subtle and significant.
Yeah, it's interesting. And he's very open about that, too. You know, he says he has a curious mind. You know, he worked with Joe Mayo, who is a very technically sound coach, dives deep, as Viktor likes to dive. But also, too, Grant Waite, who is, you know, also, too, worked in partnership with Joe Mayo. But it's interesting. I always look and think to myself, you know, a player like Viktor Hovland, who won 3 times in 2023, suddenly then decides to make a change. And then I'm like, why would you change anything? You know, but because it's his curious mind that you said, and his willingness to want to keep improving. Not to say he hadn't learned everything from Joe, but it's interesting to say, okay, well, why upset the apple cart? Why not just continue to win 2 or 3 times a year and be happy? But it's his mind and his curious nature with that man there, Grant Waite, where they have said amongst, you know, trying to figure it out and trying to refine and get better.
Yeah, I think he wants to win more than 2 and 3, right? And I think he thought, I shouldn't speak for him. My belief is that perhaps something was missing. He needed more. What could he do better? He certainly has improved around the greens, that's for sure. You can look at his stats to see that. His putting has been quite good. I think where he's struggled still is that off the tee shot. Just can't quite get comfortable over the tee ball. I think when I looked it up, he's 151st in stats. And I don't want to get too stat heavy here, but that matters when you're between 10 and 20 in every other category. And I think if you watch him play, that would be the one area I would think he'd want to get back to his best form.
Well, let's hear from Viktor's coach. He's standing by with Robert.
I'm here with Grant Waite, Viktor Hovland's coach, PGA Tour winner. And when a player, truly one of the best players in the world, come to you and say, I want some help, and I'm talking about Viktor, not myself. But
I'm glad you clarified.
Okay, yeah, I had to make sure because I know you're thinking me. But Viktor comes to you, and he's like I said, one of the best players in the world. Yeah. Do you ever think, like, maybe there's a moment that it's too much to handle? He's already gotten so great, or do you get excited about working with the best?
So they come and ask you that question because there's something in their game that's bothering them, right? So you just talk through it with them. So what is it? What's going on here? Do you have not control of the ball, or swing doesn't feel right? You're seeing more outliers than you would like. They're there for a reason. The player knows, even if they're playing fine, they know that there's an issue. So for me, it's exciting because this is a high-level athlete, proprioceptive athlete, and when something's not right, they know it, and it's my job to kind of help them think through the things that they've done in the past when they've played well, what is the difference, and then kind of problem solve to get them back there. So it's fun for me. It's a bit of stress because, he's such a good player and you want him to play well, but it's just what I do, and I really enjoy it.
What specific did he come to you about this time, or what are you working on specifically?
Yeah, so when he was playing his very best, he would hit the mid-trajectory kind of fade off the tee. And he went through some things. He was trying to get a bit more speed and then kind of lost his pattern, and all of a sudden he couldn't hit the shot that was very comfortable for him under pressure, and he could pull out driver on holes where people weren't able to hit driver because he hit it so straight. And suddenly he's lost that pattern. And instead of hitting mid-trajectory fades, he's hitting kind of high push cuts, and then he would overdraw the ball, and these are things he didn't do in the past. So it was like, okay, so what's changed? Something's changed. Just physics is physics, and the ball's doing what it's doing based on that. And so it was just saying, look, let's look at your old pattern. Here's what you did really well, and based on application of force and motion, here's how the club worked, here's how your body worked, and here's how things have changed. And the hard part is you spend a few years doing that, so you're trying to unwind that a little bit. We're not trying to be exactly what we used to do, but we're trying to get closer so we got the ball flight. And as well as I do, when you're out here, if you stand on the tee and you expect the ball to do something, and it's doing the opposite, it's a hard place to be to play great golf.
You're not kidding. Well, you're a jockey with a really fast horse over here, so
Yeah, he's a high-level proprioceptive athlete, so it's kind of fun to do.
I guess so. All right, good luck this week. Thanks very much.
Of course.
Robert Dameron visiting with Grant Waite, who is a beautiful swinger of the club, by the way. Check out some of the videos of Waite when he was winning 4 times around the world, including on the PGA Tour in 1993. A lot of what he said there, Susie, was very revealing. It wasn't so much, or at least entirely, about any technical components of the swing. It was more about what's inside the mind of a player. And we've talked about how active this man's mind is.
Yeah, what a tremendous coach, too. What a testament to him, because he said it to us. First you got to get in their head. What is it that's bothering you, right? When the best players in the world come, something's bothering them, and they know what that is. I think oftentimes as a coach, sometimes you want to dive right in and look at data and look at a number and try to tell them what's wrong, and instead he's asking. And then to have that opportunity to be able to correct him with physics, which is how Viktor would, I think, prefer it to be, as his mind works that way. That's when you have a really great coach-player partnership, when you can communicate in a way that the player understands it, can perform it, can ask questions back to you, and can trust you.
Minwoo Lee with driver in hands here, Colin, which is always an adventure. No shortage of speed from this cat, even on a brisk Wednesday afternoon.
Every time I see Minwoo on the range with this club, I've always got to sit a little closer to the screen. I want to get sucked into the backdraft. Watch this one here, folks. Remember, this is Wednesday.
Oh, that's just cruising speed there. That's all that was.
Look at that, just cruising at 179 miles an hour. That's incredible. 7 feet of curve. Could hang your washing on that one.
How young was he in Australia when you first heard that he was making sort of waves in the junior ranks, as he was eventually pointing toward a professional career here on the tour?
Yeah, I still have some ties back home and with Golf Australia and things like that. And I would say you could go back a good 7, 8 years, when they were really sort of hyping this guy up. And it was his speed, too, that was the issue. His coach, is also a very interesting story in itself. And we'll dive into that in a little bit. But he's just a really good talent, relies heavily on this club. And a little caddy change, too. You can see that man sort of holding the bag up there. That's Shane Joel, a fellow Aussie. I think this is a good mix, too. Shane's been around the block a minute or two, been out on the PGA Tour, Seniors Tour, and he has a wealth of knowledge that I think he can really help navigate with Minwoo Lee.
Loads of talent, Susie, but he's only the second most accomplished player in his own family.
Yeah, Minjee. Can you imagine growing up with Minwoo and Minjee? I mean, oh my goodness. But, Minwoo just hits it so far because he's got that great centered pivot, very little sway, just pushes up through the ball. His vertical lift is incredible. He just bombs it.
Put it all together in Houston when he finally broke through on the PGA Tour. He's been in the hunt in some big events, had a little trouble getting across the line, was right there for a sniff at the Players' Championship in recent years as well. But lots of oohs and ahs about this part of the game here, Colin. But really, it was the short game that got him across the line in Houston.
Yeah, it also, too, is Houston's a golf course where I think it really suited this guy. It's a little bit more wide open, a little bit more, you can miss it a little bit more and things like that. But like you said, obviously short game that week. You've got to chip and putt.
Boy, there's a huge delay because I got the light way before you.
So the fellas skirted a little bit of what was a pretty nasty forecast, and it's like fairly clear sailing over the next few days, relatively speaking, as it applies to Pebble Beach, of course. We're having fun bringing you the Wednesday coverage here on the range and dipping into the minds and the swings of the best players in the game who are gathered here. Opening round coverage on ESPN Plus and Golf Channel coming your way Thursday.
hazarded.
Peek in on J.J. Spaun, the reigning United States Open champion. Peeking in on some data that he's tracking very closely. Easily could have been a multiple win season for this guy last year. Pushed Rory McIlroy to the brink in that Monday finish at the Players. Lost in the playoff to Justin Rose in Memphis, the first FedEx Cup playoff event. It was a transcendent season for JJ, but it could have been one for the ages, Susie.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I think really for many people, it was first look in at J.J. Spaun's game and how incredible a player he truly is. He's got such a consistent golf swing, too, just textbook fundamentals for J.J. You know, as I say that, I see a little sway in his lower back, but normally that's not there. It's cold out today, Colin, right?
It is, and that man there that's completely rugged up behind him, of course, is Adam Schreiber. That's his coach. Been with him for a long time. He's a very, very smart guy. Knows a lot about the biomechanics of the golf swing, and also, too, is huge on the swing and the body connection. Uses the medicine balls to create body motion that he can apply to feels in the golf swing.
That makes sense, too, because JJ, in the coaching world, we would call it efficient energy. Yeah, everything just is working together. It's very easy golf swing to watch. You know, his right shoulder and his hip move back in unison. He's got minimal hand action through the base of the golf swing. A very minimal lateral sway. He uses his pivot beautifully alongside his upper body connections. So it's just a fun golf swing if you go to an event to sit behind and watch on the driving range.
There's another one of those guys too, Susie, that he knows his swing and he knows his limitations. Mm-hmm. He's not going to be hitting at 353 yards. He's not going to be carrying it, 320 yards. He's not going to have ball speed of 189 miles an hour. He knows his strengths, he knows his weaknesses, he plays to his strength and he minimizes those weaknesses, and that's how you hoist a US Open trophy.
And he did it at Oakmont, which is as big and brawny as US Open venues get it, but he did it in a very J.J. Spaun manner that week.
Yeah, it was interesting because, everyone coming into that week was like, oh, the Bombers, the Bombers, the Bombers. But also, too, it was like, well, you got to really take someone that can find the fairway and is good with iron play, and he ticks those two boxes for certain.
Robert, it's been quite an ascent for J.J. Spaun inside the top 10 in the world rankings.
Yeah, you don't want to say he came out of nowhere because he'd been around for some time, but I'm not sure we saw that meteoric rise that we saw last year coming. I tell you guys, he's been grinding really hard on the range. He hit balls for about 45 minutes, and that was when the weather was really rotten. Working and watching his swing every time. He's still working there on his swing. He went over the putting green and putted for an hour with his caddy and with his coach watching some different lines, some different drills. But, I mean, it wasn't just let's go hit some putts. It's grinding away on that. Now he's back on the range. So I would say safe to bet his game is not where he wants it to be.
Yeah, that's a really good point that you made. We were actually talking about the same thing, with regards to JJ. We saw him, like you said, on the range. Then he made the move away. Now he's come back, and they're spending a lot of time filming swings. You can see JJ there very heavily involved in what he's looking for, things like that. So, like you say, I just don't think he's got his stuff, and it's late on Wednesday.
It's late on Wednesday, right? You think, do we go? Do we stay? Do I exhaust myself? I know at one point we saw his coach back away and just give him some space to hit some of his balls singularly, too. So when we saw that little graphic, too, you saw, 69%, I think it said, was left to right, 23% was right to left. And certainly they're going to go out there and work on shot shapes. But that was a little surprising to me as well. That big of a bulk was on the other side of that.
Then a middling start to the season for Spaun. 40th at the Sony Open and a miscut at the Farmers Insurance Open. The amateurs, the celebrities, they're a big part of the mix here this week as well. It's a big week for them as well. Robert's standing by and standing well short of one of them.
Oh, okay. Hi, I'm here with Pau Gasol. Pau, I see you're working hard. Back in studio, we've got your swing. Exmo, there's going to be broken down by Jason Day's coach, Colin Swatton. What's he looking for?
What's he looking for? Well, that's up to him, but it's, you know, it's going to look for a little bit of an inside takeaway. I'm working on changing my grip to have better impact and be able to hopefully compress the ball a little better and regain a little distance that I've lost. You know, I also kind of relax the hands a little bit more, so I'm working on just hinging and relaxing the hands so I don't, you know, my swing is not so stiff as I'm trying to consciously sometimes, or unconsciously, control more, and that's kind of counterproductive. Yeah, so that's kind of what, kind of some of the things, and then swing freely and just commit to it and be fluid.
It seems like you're really grinding, though. You're really trying to get it right for tomorrow. It's, you know, yeah. I'm sure a lot
and
of
beyond.
And beyond. Okay, from now on. But I'm sure there's a lot of nerves involved. Do you feel a lot more nerves playing with these great guys than you did in your own sport?
You know, what happens usually historically is my fourth AT&T, and what happens usually is you start a little tight, which is not good. You know, and then by a couple holes or a few holes into it, you start saying, I got to start releasing and having some fun and not really caring too much, and just relaxing. And once you start doing that and you start swinging, you know, I have a great caddy, and Kevin, and he is, you know, very positive and tries to relax me. And just sometimes it's like be an athlete, just be you, and just go out and swing the ball and swing the club. So that's kind of that's when I start playing better.
All right, well, that sounds easy enough. Thank you very much. Have a good one this week.
Thank you so
Appreciate
much.
it.
Appreciate you.
Heck of an NBA career for that man across 18 seasons, 6 times an All-Star, back-to-back NBA titles with the Lakers. Plays off at 10. Colin, how about the action here?
Well, you can see he's doing exactly what he says. He's taken the club way on the inside. For a tall guy, he didn't really utilize all the length of the backswing, but really down and through the ball, that's where it matters the most. Comes down, extends through beautifully. We're going to see him here from the down the line view, exactly what he's working on. You can see him really trying to suck it on the inside on the way back and swing out to right field, as they say, create that little draw. He's probably smiling now, thinking, I've got Cole Swatton breaking my swing down. And it is worth a photo. But all these athletes, Susie, like, they make the crossover into a different sport, and in this particular case, golf. They make the crossover and they draw parallels from their own sport. You know, you've heard him sort of talking about, oh, I get a little tight, little, you know, nervous in the first couple of holes. Then after that, I start to swing a little bit more freely, things like that. I think that's always great. I love working with different athletes, picking their brain a little bit and sort of saying, okay, what did you do in your sport? And then also, too, trying to bring it into golf to also look at that coaching aspect as well and look at similarities.
Yeah, I mean, athletes are also so hard on themselves, right? And really will go to work for you if you give them some good things to work on. You know, as you watch, obviously, for all of us watching, I mean, it looks like he's hitting a U.S. Kids Club, right? But at the end of the day, it's truly not. And so he's had to modify, and his coaches had to modify some things based on the fact that trying to get down to that golf ball isn't as easy for him as it is for the rest of us, as the clubs have a certain length that they can and can't be. But to your point, had a great attitude. I even said, I need to go out there and be an athlete. It really is nerve-wracking stepping on the first tee of a Pro-Am, for sure, for people who've never participated or played. He knows this is his 4th time, and he still said, I'm still going to be nervous till the 4th hole. So, you know, I applaud all the amateurs for supporting the event, for AT&T for having them, and I'm excited. I hope he plays well.
Opening round tee time for Brian Harman at 10:03 Pacific time tomorrow. He'll start his week at Pebble Beach. Multiple winner on the PGA Tour, 4 times a champion. Of course, the big one coming at the Open in 2023. He added the Valero Texas Open to the resume 2 years after that.
Yeah, it's always interesting, you know. You look at a guy like Brian Harman. He's a Georgia Bulldog. He's a Bulldog himself. He likes the conditions tough. You mentioned, obviously, the Open Championship. We saw exactly what he had to deal with there. But then you think to yourself, okay, Pebble Beach, you know, it's not the longest course in the world. It's a little bit more open. The greens are small. you know, it should suit a guy like Brian Harman. In fact, he's been here 7 times, only had 1 top 25. You know, you've got to start to think, okay, well, what's going on there, and why maybe, you know, he hasn't had the success that we know he could have at a venue like this.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And who knows, it could just be grasses, as we talked about the greens. But I would imagine, same as you, maybe that he would have a little bit more success than he's had. You know, I know you guys were looking at the lefties earlier and seeing where they all stood in this event. And sure enough, I think we found, what, 2?
Yeah, there was actually, I was surprised at how many lefties have obviously, you know, one here, Ted Potter Jr. comes to mind straight away. And you've got Phil Mickelson, 2-time winner here.
There's our tracing technology provided by TrackMan. You and Jason Day were right in the hunt. I want to say the year that Ted Potter Jr. won here, right?
You had to go there, didn't you, Spaun? You had to go there.
I remember.
Yeah, that was a second.
Yeah, you can see in the beginning of Brian's golf swing, you see it's pretty static right in the first 6 inches, but it gives you a big rotary. And that backswing winds it up.
And that's been the common theme today, you know, your choice of radar tracking device, you know, DC Quad in this particular case, you know, TrackMan, we've seen a number of those out on the range. And they're all dialing in numbers. You know, you heard Robert talk about it in one of his interviews there, that heavy wind, that cold air that comes in off Monterey Peninsula. And, you know, the big change from those sort of dry conditions where the ball goes a mile in the desert to having to deal with this week is certainly going to be a challenge for a lot of the guys.
Can't wait to bring you the coverage all week long here on Golf Channel. Just getting started on the range from Pebble Beach. It has not been the best of starts to 2026 for Ludwig Åberg. He withdrew from the American Express, remember, with an illness. Maybe that was lingering the following week when he missed the cut by a mile at Torrey Pines, Susie. But really, it's a continuation of what was kind of a dismal end to his 2025 campaign.
Yeah, I agree. Certainly, you know, high hopes from everybody, too. So maybe expectations got a little out of whack when he first came out. But just such a buttery, smooth, beautiful motion at the golf ball. I mean, it was hard not to pick him. I think I picked him last year to win the Masters, as a matter of fact, looking back on it, as we were covering some of that. So, you know, he's not going away, but he's certainly somewhere along the line. There is something in his mechanics under the gun when the lights go on that he's struggling with. Because if you were watching him here now, it looks pretty easy, it looks smooth, it looks uneventful, it looks athletic, but in fact, it's not putting up results.
Maybe, Colin, it's the burden of expectation. He's accomplished so much at such a tender age, we forget how relatively inexperienced he is as a professional.
Yeah, and it's interesting, you know, that move that he's just doing there. I haven't seen him do that move before. So to Susie's point, I think there's been something maybe that's just got a little bit off, a pattern that maybe he had success with and then has got away from. He's just trying to reinforce it there. As you can see him just dialing in some numbers.
Yeah, you can see that takeaway there. Just fellow shaft to the ground, left arm right in front of him, keeping his huge rotation and keeping that chest over the golf ball. You see he's hanging back just a little bit there, gets that left elbow a little folded, which we've seen now a couple of the players like Jordan Spieth do well. But I mean, looking at that in 10 seconds and less, I would say maybe there's a little too much hang back in transition.
All right, we came on the air about 90 minutes ago. You told us what it takes to win here, Susie, at Pebble Beach, and of course, Spyglass each of the first 2 days as well. Now, who is going to be the winner here this week? Who you got?
I've got to go with Justin Rose. I just have to. I mean, past winner here, playing some great golf. I just feel like he's representing all of us that want to still play great golf, and he's doing it in an unbelievable way, and I'm rooting for him all the way.
Justin Rose, already a winner this season, Colin, at the age of 45, 13 wins on the tour. Who are you looking at this week?
I'm going to take a kid that finished 39th in the FedEx Cup. Got his first win in 47 starts. He's already started the season second at the Sony, second at Amex, 11th at the Farmers. He's also had a win on the Corn Ferry Tour in a similar format, be it a Pro-Am with the BMW charity. My man, Ryan Gerard.
Yeah, you know what?
I like it.
Good on you. He's a Tar Heel.
I like your guy, Jason Day, by the way.
Hey, I like him too.
He has embraced this format, as you've told me, playing very well himself, converging trends for the Aussie. Hey, a lot of fun doing this for you. I appreciate being with you, Susie. You, Colin, as well. Robert Dameron down there on the range with us here on Golf Channel. 3 o'clock Eastern Time on Thursday, right here on Golf Channel. It's opening round coverage of the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am.